Okay, so we are right at noon and we're going to go ahead and get started with our session today so that way we have plenty of time for questions and answers. And I'm grateful for everyone that is joining us this afternoon for this workshop. We are going to be talking about healthy teams. So whether it's building a healthy team from the ground up, what components you want to have in place, or if you have a team in place already and you want to assess the healthiness of your team, hopefully this workshop will help you do that. We have our opening slide set on the screen share, and I do have slides that we're going to go through during our teaching time today, and hopefully that will help you, like if you're a note taker, and that way you can reference the words on the screen rather than trying to recall something that I just said, because I am going to move kind of quickly through the content so that way we can get to that Q&A time where there is more of an application through what it is that I'm sharing today. My name is Valarie Smith, and I am so glad that y'all are here today. I see a bunch of really smart people on this session with us, so I will be looking for you all to help join in as we get to the Q&A, because I know that this team that's here right now, we are stronger together, we are smarter together. So I don't have all the answers. I do have the Holy Ghost, as do you. So we're going to jump in. And everyone, I just asked, I mentioned earlier, if you would just mute your microphones during the teaching component of the workshop, so that way we get a clear recording of the content of the workshop, and then we'll go into the Q&A. If you have a question, you can type it in the chat box. Without further ado, let's get started. A healthy team is one that is vibrant and strong. It's one that's motivated and activated to move the mission forward. That's what we want to see, right? We want to see that mission move forward. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I'm originally from the Chicagoland area. I have lived in Tucson now for 20 years. So officially, I've actually lived in Tucson longer than anywhere else, but my roots have never left. So I've got a quote from Michael Jordan as we open our time today. And he said that talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence win championships. And I know all of you probably have had experience with seeing where talent comes into play, but we know that teamwork is what carries us through to accomplishing the mission, accomplishing the vision. We cannot do ministry alone. We cannot do life alone. Proverbs 1:5 says, a wise man will hear and increase in learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. We are wise people because we are here today at this workshop, and we're here to learn something, and we're going to learn this together. And as people of understanding, we see the value in teams. And in teams, that's how we attain counsel. It's not just us in some great idea, but we allow others to have input and help us, because there are things that we don't see. There's perspectives that we don't have. There's experiences that we don't have. I don't know about you, but I think I would be pretty tired if I was trying to experience every aspect of learning that's available. That would be exhausting. So I count on my team members to bring experiences and learning that I do not have. So the foundational component for a team, trust. I know you're surprised, right? Trust is the building block. It's the foundation for any relationship. So why wouldn't it be the foundation for a healthy team? I'm going to go ahead and give you the definition of trust. Trust is a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. And we want trust to be that building block of our teams. We want to make sure that we're trusting our team members and that they trust us as leaders. Proverbs 3 verses 5-7 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. We don't want to be wise in our own eyes. We want to Trust in the Lord. Well, part of that is trusting in Him and in the ones that He has set with us on this journey. When we look to our team, we want to evaluate and understand that God has placed them in our team as an asset to the team. They're a treasure, and we can trust Him and trust them as we build our team together. Amen? So trust is foundational. When building systems and processes, we want members who can freely ask questions without fear of personal criticism and being shamed, demeaned, or humiliated. When trust is present in a team, we see each team member being transparent, being vulnerable. Trust gives place for each gift to be expressed and utilized for the benefit of the team. You want to see a team operate at a capacity of going forward. Trust is going to be the foundation in order for that to happen. When trust is absent and it's not being cultivated, then oftentimes we experience a place of fear among the members of the team. There are restrictions to openness within our team members, and members typically operate from a place of insecurity. And all of this undervalues and undermines the work of trying to establish trust in a team. Our next component of a healthy team is constructive conflict. Yes, I did use the word conflict, and you might be thinking there is no way that conflict belongs on a healthy team, but I'm here to tell you it absolutely does. Constructive conflict is a different type of conflict. It sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? When we think of conflict, typically we have a negative perception of conflict, but constructive conflict, or C conflict, means that there's a place for disagreements to happen that serve a useful purpose and tend to build up toward a solution. Do you see how that's a different perception, a different perspective of conflict? That's how conflict can be healthy. It's because it's leading us towards our purpose. It's leading us towards our solution. So when we work together in a place of constructive conflict, that's a good thing. Constructive conflict means that we're having some disagreements. Yes. But the disagreements are happening without tearing people down or tearing ideas down. No one is being demeaned or devalued on the team because they're bringing something to the table that opposes what the other members of the team may be coming to a consensus about. We want to encourage the free expression of ideas, especially when it comes to people's experiences and their perceptions, because they're going to bring something to the table that will help us see an aspect that maybe we didn't see before. And all of this conflict is done in a respectful manner, so it maintains the integrity of the team and the relationships within the team. Constructive conflict gives place for each gift to share their perspective. It gives place for that gift to share their opinion. And even when it's not in alignment with the team, you see the team valuing that opposition of those opinions and perspectives, because it causes us to grow and look at things from a different way. When constructive conflict is absent, team members are usually operating in a way to create an artificial harmony. How many of you have been on that team? Or people are putting on a facade and they're adapting from their true self to a persona for the sake of the team. That's not healthy. We want to make sure that we are building opportunities and space for constructive conflict to happen. Our next component is commitment. Commitment is the state or quality of being dedicated to a cause or activity. This particular component of a team is more of an action component. It's one that you can visibly see our team members engaging in. With trust as the foundation and constructive conflict happening, team members demonstrate commitment with their dedication or their loyalty to the team. They make team meetings a priority. They participate in discussions and decision-making, and we see them commit to areas of responsibility, and there's action to move the mission forward, to move projects along. Commitment is a key component to healthy teams because it is the movement or the action of the team. A lack of commitment, if it's absent, that creates a place where people are unclear about their role in the team, and they're hesitant to participate because they don't see anyone else committing or participating in the function of the team. They may try to position themselves as advice givers. If they don't want to commit, they're usually happy to give advice on how things should be done, but they don't actually have skin in the game, so to speak. A lack of commitment is going to create confusion and hesitation in your other team members. So that needs to be addressed if it's happening in your team. Accountability. Yes, I said that word. Everybody take a deep breath. Accountability is a good word. It's an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility to account for one's actions. We want to see our team members accepting responsibility because that means that they're being owners and not just a part of the situation, but they have that skin in the game that we were talking about with commitment. So accountability to the team. Accountability is to the team. It's not to a person. Accountability happens and we see people being an active part of the team because they're moving towards those checkpoints, they're getting things done, and they're meeting those deadlines. Accountability helps us move along the timeline instead of having never-ending cycles of work, right? They're active owners in the mission with projects. They're moving the team along towards accomplishing the vision. Accountability in a healthy team is not punitive. It's seen as part of that bigger picture, and it's a positive thing because it's creating a healthy system for the team to function and accomplish the mission. Lack of accountability indicates avoidance of interpersonal discomfort. It devalues the mission in order to protect the feelings of the members. When we see accountability, especially when accountability is built into a person, we'll see that individual avoid that person when they haven't done what they said they were going to do. Accountability to a team means that I've let the team down, and for whatever reason, that's a different feeling that gets tapped into instead of I've let a person down. It holds them to a higher standard when they're functioning with a team, and especially if they're functioning with a team where the members are meeting deadlines. It creates kind of a group consensus of this is what we do as a team. This is the expectation as a team. And that helps to move the mission forward. Building and growing together. We have 3 words on this slide. I'm going to go ahead and define each of them and then give you kind of my summary interpretation of those 3 definitions. So building is the process of creating or developing something, typically a system or a situation, over a period of time. Growing means becoming greater over a period of time, increasing. And together means that we're doing it in companionship. Now, I want to point out that over a period of time was included in 2 of our words. So building and growing together means that this is happening not just in one session as a team, but this is a continual culture of your team, that you're in a place of building and growing and building and growing. So that's the culture that's being cultivated. So in other words, this means the team has entered a rhythm of creating and developing, becoming greater through intentional pursuits, all while working with one another. Doesn't that just sound amazing? That's the team I want to be on. So if members of the team are building and growing together with all those other components in place, then we're pursuing more learning if necessary. We're engaging in ongoing pursuit of healthy relationships with members of the team, and we're working towards a common goal. Building and growing perpetuates as time goes by, and the team becomes more intimate with the strengths and the weaknesses of those participating. Did you know it's an honor to know someone's weakness? Not so that you can exploit it, but so that you can cover it, because you may have strength in that area. That's what it looks like to be a healthy team. This allows for each member to operate effectively in their gifting, and it gives a rich vault to draw from in times of chaos and crisis. You may have already experienced that given the past 13 weeks of life that we've had in crisis and chaos and pivoting and changing and challenging everything that we've ever known as a team before. If members of the team are not building and growing together, what we may end up seeing is what I like to refer to as silos being built. So let's say, for example, your children's ministry is in active pursuit of goals, and they're growing and they're experiencing success, but they kind of operate on their own, and they're not really operating as a part and a function of the church. That means that there's something missing in the team, because the rest of the team members are not being able to give their perspectives, their experiences, and their opinions. And we see an individual who's going off and doing their own thing. We want to work as a team because we're growing and building together to accomplish a common vision and a common mission. And that's what we want to do. We want to work together. When we see someone kind of off on their own, pursuing their own thing, it erodes the team relationship. It creates a place of uncertainty and even a place of just challenge with the rest of the team being able to trust that team member. So it completely goes back and attacks the foundation of the team when we see someone who's kind of going off on their own. Phil Jackson said, "The strength of the team is each individual member, and the strength of each member is the team." They really do go hand in hand. We do want to see individual growth, but we want to see individual growth that's bringing the individual into a place and a path of growing with the team, that the team benefits as the individual grows. And as the team acquires strength and grows, then the individuals are each benefited as well, because they're being challenged, maybe in ways that they weren't being challenged before. So the question on the table for our workshop today, how healthy is your team? You don't have to answer that question, but you can reflect as we get ready to wrap up our time in this instructional side of the workshop. I just want to go on to show you a quick diagram here. So if we're wanting to shift, if we've identified areas that are unhealthy and we want to shift those areas to healthy, we want to start with looking at that foundational value, that foundational component, trust. And then we want to evaluate the constructive conflict area of our teams, commitment, accountability, and then we want to evaluate our building and growing together. The systematic evaluation of this, again, it makes sense because we want to have that foundation of trust before we try to modify any other component of the team. That trust has to be in place in order for anything else to happen. So if you're having issues with trust, if trust is missing, the leader, so if you're the leader of the team, you're kind of it. You're the one that has to begin with initiating a process to establish trust within the members of the team. That means that you are vulnerable first. You admit your weaknesses, you admit mistakes that you've made along the way, sharing that learning that you've experienced in life, in ministry, at work, being vulnerable and sharing and being transparent about not just the highlights of life, but the struggles of life. helps to create a base place for trust. Also, not jumping to negative conclusions at the beginning of conversations, that will help you. Instead of coming with an answer, and especially a negative answer, ask questions. Take time to listen to the team members and ensure that it's a safe harbor for your team members to also be transparent and vulnerable. That encourages a place of trust, and it will help to grow that place of trust. Now, I have some handouts, and I thought I could put the files in the Q&A, but I couldn't figure out how to do that when we were getting ready to start. So if we cannot figure that out, I will get with Whitney about attaching those files somehow or sending them out, because I've got a handout on how to go through a personal histories exercise as a team building exercise. I've got resources on personality tests, behavior tests that are free. All of these exercises you can utilize to help build trust. And then there's other resources referenced in the resource handout as well. If constructive conflict is missing, I challenge you to bring up controversial topics and create space for members to share their opinions, their perspectives, and their experiences. You might be surprised at what your team members have to say. And not answering whatever the problem is, whatever the life challenge is, don't bring an answer to the table. Again, for a healthy team, a leader wants to gain skills at asking open questions. That's what's going to help facilitate those discussions. You want to mine the hearts of your team members for qualitative input. Ask their opinion, ask their experience. Ask, if they don't have an opinion, if they haven't had an experience, you can ask them the question that my children are like, please don't ask me that. Well, if you did have an understanding, or if you did have an experience about this, what would that look like? And then kind of, ask those questions to draw out of them what they're thinking, what they're feeling, because all of that qualitative information is going to help in having that full discussion and create a place for constructive conflict where you can see disagreement happen because of two varying opinions or perspectives. Active listening, it's a crucial, critical part of cultivating this healthy team component. And there is a wealth of wisdom from the team in the room. You just got to mine the wisdom that's there. They are treasures. If commitment is missing, this one can be kind of tricky because it depends on what the lack of commitment, what the root is in their lack of commitment. And then you need to build a strategy based on that. If a team member fears failure, then you want to have those discussions about contingencies and worst case scenarios. Working with that team member and talking through just the gamut of ideas will help them be able to either commit or absolutely not commit to whatever the project is. But it opens up the discussion so that they can have all the pieces in place before they make the commitment. If a team member is hesitant because they always get projects that are never ending and the work goes on and it just keeps piling on, then help that team member set deadlines and checkpoints along the way. Show them what the goal is so we know when we've accomplished what it is that we're setting out to accomplish. And if it is an ongoing system that's being built, then help them recruit help to maintain and continue the system so that way they don't end up with another thing on their plate that is an ongoing commitment. So those are just a couple of ideas about where team members might not be committing. If accountability is missing, just warning, resentment can occur from other team members. If you have a team member on your team who is not accountable, not committed, but everyone else has a different work ethic, so they don't really need help with accountability or commitment, they may be harboring resentment towards the other team member. And this creates another layer of unhealth in the team. Setting clear goals and standards action items for projects. All of that needs to be clear, and that will help create a place of accountability. And remember, accountability is to the team, not a person. All of the communication must be clear, with clear expectation, no ambiguity. You don't want to have anyone leaving the team meeting without understanding what their responsibility is and what their role is. Having that accountability is going to create ownership and camaraderie, because we all want to be in this together, don't we? So we want to create that place. If building and growing together is missing, like I mentioned earlier, the question on the table is, has the silo effect happened? Each ministry area can be standing and functioning on its own, maybe even thriving. That's kind of a danger sign. When you see one area of the different ministries thriving, but not engaging with the rest of the activities of the church. I have a background in HR. My HR director would always remind managers, you are not an island. So we want to remind those who are in charge of ministries that are at our leadership table that they are not an island. They are not a silo. They are not working on this all by themselves, that they are part of the church, or they are part of the business as a whole. And one of the ways that you can see that silo mentality or that island mentality is if something comes to the table for discussion that is not their area of ministry, you can see by their body language that they disconnect and unplug from the meeting. I would challenge you to re-engage them. Bring them into the discussion by asking that open question about their perspective, their opinion, or their experience, and get them in the conversation so that they can be a part of building and growing every area towards the mission and accomplishing the goal. Kind of seems like a no-brainer, but God does desire healthy teams. He's given us all sorts of scriptures about being, in a place where there is counsel. That would be a team. We know that there's safety in that in Proverbs 11:14. We know that the one who does not acquire learning but jumps to a conclusion, that he's a fool, according to Proverbs 18. It says the heart of the prudent acquires knowledge. We want to be prudent. Well, that means Proverbs 23:23, we're encouraged to, even at all cost, buy the truth. So whatever we need to do to acquire truth, to acquire wisdom, instruction, and understanding, then we should be doing it. So that means working with our teams, letting them have a voice, letting each member bring what they have, their gift, to the table, so that we can all grow and build together and have that thriving team that is activated for where we are going. Okay, so I'm gonna stop our screen share. Oh my goodness, look at we look like better than the Brady Bunch. I love it all. I now see all of the little boxes on my screen. Okay, so we are gonna move into our Q&A time. So if you have a question, Ernie Beers is on the line and he will be happy to answer your question. That's an ongoing joke. But you can unmute your microphones and at least say hi. I don't see any questions yet, so.
No questions yet, but hi. Everything going on here. Good to see you all.
I think I hear Eric, Mr. Sonera. I heard a voice. Lonnie Stewart's unmuted. Did you have a question or a comment, sir?
Just really, really good teaching. Just really, really enjoyed it very, very much.
Awesome.
Really enjoyed it a lot.
Praise
I
God.
see some areas where I need to improve, need to make some adjustments, and just really good stuff.
Good.
So Amen. Really enjoyed it a lot.
I'm glad to hear that. Wonderful. Like I said, I have 3 handouts to somehow get to you all. One of them talks through different types of conflict. One of them is truly just a resource page. It's like 2 pages of books, articles, those assessments that I talked about, the exercises. It has hyperlinks to all of that. And then I think all the Proverbs that I mentioned in today's session are also on a handout for you. So I'll make sure that we get that to you somehow, so that way you have them as kind of a take home.
Hey Valarie, it's Kathy here. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Kathy?
How's everybody? I see some people I know. Can you share with us what kind of teams or what is the depth of your teams in your church? Like, are you working with just an executive team that Dr. Radke talked about? Or have you been able to, I'm assuming actually you've been able to build down a few levels, but can you share about that a little bit?
Sure. Great question, Kathy. I can share my experience on that. So at this point, we have reset our main executive table. We call it our strategic team, and we have 5 members that sit at that table with Pastor John. And then I actually oversee our family ministries team. So that's the next table, one of those tables off of that table. And I work with that team there. And we are getting ready to start that next tier with those folks that are at that table. Probably in about 2 months, we will launch. So the rest of the folks at our strategic team table are working on building their teams literally as we speak. Okay, maybe not. They're probably attending a workshop, so they're not working on that list right now. But we are implementing the leadership system by Dean Radke. One of the first things that we shared was that team covenant, and that team covenant, if you've heard his teaching on team covenant or reviewed it, these 5 components for a healthy team are absolutely part of that team covenant. So it's nice to kind of get everybody into that place of agreement that we are going to be committed, we're going to be accountable, we're going to have constructive conflict, as awkward as it is when you've not had that and you've created that false harmony environment, being honest with one another, and of course agreeing to build and grow together, and all of that from a place of trust and that safe harbor in that team.
Mm-hmm.
So as we start those new teams, they will all talk about what we talked about today and implement that as kind of that base point for the growth and operation of the team.
Mm-hmm. So you sit on the strategic team as well as John?
So the strategic team is with John, and he's the CEO of that team, the head of that team. And then I lead up our family ministries team currently.
Okay.
So that's the area I get to lead up.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
I do have one question.
Go for it.
As the lead pastor, of course, I lead the A team, and we're endeavoring to implement Dr. Radke's system in our church as well. So my question is this: as the lead pastor, talked about being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, as a lead pastor, let your guard down, be vulnerable, while at the same time you're the pastor, you want to be strong? How do you balance all that? How do you do that?
Great question. At one of actually the initial meeting that I had with the family ministries team members, to kind of set the stage for vulnerability, I was very open and transparent. I shared with them just a current family dynamic struggle, having 2 teenage daughters in the house and looking to launch them into the future. because it was related to family ministries. That was a good thing for me to share. Basically saying, you know, we are raising adults. That's our mission. We're raising adults on unchangeable truth to shape the world. But some days that doesn't look pretty. And here's the struggles that I've had, even in my own house with my own children. So that created an open opportunity for, you know, I've got a set of parents that, you know, their children are just behind mine. So they were like, okay, because their oldest is already starting to kind of question some things and not want to go to church and struggle with her faith. And they were like, oh, okay, so this is kind of normal. And it gave them a safe place to share even their own struggles that they were having with their family.
Excellent. Excellent.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as a pastor, I kind of struggle with that from time to time, you know, about how vulnerable to be.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it can be
so
tricky. Yeah.
that's probably a weakness that I have, you know,
Yeah.
is not always being maybe as vulnerable as what I should be, you know, trying to, you know, guard up a little bit too much
Mm-hmm.
and not let people see the human side of you, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So that's very helpful.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. You're welcome.
I have a question.
I hear a voice.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, is this Tony?
Yes. This is Tony.
Yay. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for your session. It's very good. But I want to ask, when delegating team leadership, oftentimes we lay out the goals, and I don't want to map out the strategy to achieve the goal. I want the team leader to do that, but they often don't grab those reins. And how can we help them to take that step and take ownership, just to accomplish the goal? You know, we've clearly defined the goal. You've been given the responsibility to accomplish that goal.
Sure. And that's one of the fun parts of leadership, when the goal is clearly defined and you really want to just hand that over to them so they pick it up and they just do it. This is where coaching, teaching, training, and mentoring comes into play. Talking with that individual to find out what their hesitation is in picking that up and creating an action plan. Maybe they don't feel like they have what it takes to create that action plan. That might be an exercise that you go ahead and have at that table with every leader being present, so that way they're all getting the instruction on how to build the plan that will lead us to the goal. And of course, you know, with everyone else at the table, then you have other people that you can mine in the process and get their perspective, their input, their feedback, to help create a good plan. And then you've equipped them to look for people within their own ministry area or other people that they can pull in to build plans for the future.
That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I say hi to someone?
Sure.
Hi, Jerry Burley. He's my Holy Ghost buddy. Good to see you. God bless you.
Is he Darlene on the screen?
Yeah, I see Darlene there too. God bless
All
you
right.
both. They're my Holy Ghost friends.
I love it.
Yeah.
Miss Valarie, it looks like we have a couple questions that have come in through the chat. I typed one in earlier, but there was also one from Pastor.
Okay, I think my chat went away. I apologize. Okay, we have talented members in our church, but the engaging aspect seems to diminish with time. What is a good way to keep them engaged? Yes. So, motivation. Have you ever tried to motivate a teenager? Sometimes it feels that way with our leaders, like we're trying to motivate teenagers. Keeping them engaged in the meantime, that all comes from the place of why. Why is our motivator. It's what keeps the engine running through the process. So many times we start out on a project, we think, yes, this is exciting, it's new, and then we hit what I call the middle. And when you hit the middle, it's not new and fun, it's more like work. So that's the place of encouragement, recasting the vision, and checking in with that team member to see, you know, if there's something going on that has created a place of disengagement. You'd be surprised what could be going on that has created a disengagement. You want to find out, is it, you know, has there been a situation change, a circumstance, loss of steam, or is it just they've lost motivation? You have to identify what's going on and then work with them to re-engage them. I love that comment, Pastor Corey. The middle is where we seem to always end up. The middle is the longest part of the journey. And I've got another question here. What is the best way to facilitate so that your team feels free to offer suggestions and their voices don't get lost in the moving train talking about constructive conflict? Great question. So I want to go back to that foundation. If trust is present in the team, people will feel more free to engage in constructive conflict. If they feel guarded or insecure in some way, they will withhold their opinions and their experiences. They won't be vulnerable. I have a tendency, I've got one person on my team who will always speak last, because they're processing, they're thinking, and they want to make sure that what they offer is something of value. Encouraging the team that, you know, even if you offer something that's a completely abstract, off the table idea, sometimes we need those in order to actually get to where we need to be talking about. I love humor, so I will put something on the table that is completely, like, there's no way that we're gonna, you know, teach our youth to fly planes, but we'll put it on the table to get things shaken up, to lead the conversation. And as the leader, you know, you want to offer something that helps cultivate that openness and that creativity. So if nobody is volunteering, or if someone kind of gets stuck, then go first, show them the way, model how it looks. Anyone else have any insight on that? Any wisdom they want to share, experiences? Kay?
I jotted this down when we were talking about the middle, that the middle is where the storm usually hits. And so just reminding people that we're to go to the other side, and we may have to speak to the storm, and we may have to realize that Jesus is still in the boat in the storm, in the middle. And so I just wrote that down. But I did have a question. On one hand, we're often told, you know, stay in your lane. And then on the other hand, you know, we're told, well, we need to engage with all the teams and not build silos and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So can you speak a little bit about how to walk that line and what that looks like?
I will do my best.
All right.
So I'm seeing this happening in real life, because my tendency now that I'm over another team, and of course with an entire life disruption happening in the midst of it, I could feel myself kind of getting tunneled and only focusing on, what about the kids of the church? What about the parents in the church? And then, what about the church? So we want to expand what it is that we're looking at, and yes, our focus is the area of ministry that we're over, but we are also part of that bigger picture. And the bigger picture is always impacted by the decisions that we make within our ministry area. So when I'm pivoting things for family ministries, it's important that I'm sharing that with the rest of the team, getting their input and their feedback, because, oh, all of a sudden we're going to be texting a number for lessons. Well, that affects the media department. And the media department is making changes, you know, with moving the whole service online. Well, that impacted family ministries. That means that we're not meeting. So what does that look like? So we want to see our part in the puzzle, but we also want to share our experiences, our perspectives with regard to other changes that are being made within the organization as a whole, because we have something to offer that impacts everyone at the table.
That's good, thanks. And can I just say that Mia looks really weird today? I don't know if it's my screen or what.
Yeah, I didn't remember her having facial hair, but
Yeah. Thought it was my screen.
I love it.
Valarie, to add something to the point you just made with Kay about.
Please do.
Okay. Also, it's important for, I mean, you're in a unique situation being the pastor's wife or co-pastoring, but that connection has to, let's say you're the head of the family ministries team. You've got team members under you, but it's also important for you to stay connected to the team above you, let's say, right? Isn't that the link that kind of keeps you and your team from being a silo?
It absolutely can and should. So I'm attending meetings with the strategic team. We're working on projects as a team that affect the whole church. I'm bringing reports of the family ministries team to that table and have a voice at that table in every other aspect and operation. What happens is in times of crisis or times where maybe we're just so focused and siloed, we sit at that table, but we're not engaged. So it's that member that's there, but not offering their opinion, their perspective, their advice, their experience, and they're withholding. Well, that is devaluing the team every time that person shows up at the table, but doesn't have input into the discussion that's going on, and creates that separation among the team members.
That's good.
Okay. So it looks like we've got another question. It says, as we transition into a new season, what would I suggest in rebuilding trust and a new team? Like I mentioned earlier, there are some resources that I have to put in your hands. Thank you so much for that question, Greg. With rebuilding trust, that starts with the leader. Like I mentioned earlier, it's that place of being transparent, being vulnerable, building a place of trust with your team members, and you as the leader, you have to go first. Anytime that trust is broken or trust is non-existent, then you have to take that first step in establishing trust within the team. Does that answer the question, Greg? I think I don't have enough windows on my screen. Okay. And then Lonnie Stewart's asking if I can explain the difference between constructive conflict and strife. Absolutely. So constructive conflict is going to move us toward a solution to whatever the challenge is on the table, whatever the problem is on the table. Strife is going to separate the team members. It's going to undermine them, because strife is usually comes from a place of critiquing people on a personal level or attacking a person based on their values and their value system. And so that cultivates division within the conversation. You'll see people closing off, shutting down. When that's happening, the strife is usually present. Constructive conflict, you're going to see people leaning into the discussion because they want to see where the ball is going to be tossed to next, and they want to get in on the conversation. And like I said, I've got this handout that on conflict that will talk about those differences in conflict and how to move from conflict that is full of strife to a conflict that is healthier.
Good. Excellent. Excellent.
Any other questions? It's so nice to see everyone's face. I miss not being in Tulsa, but I'll take this. This is a good alternative.
Yes.
Quick question about Zoom.
Excellent.
Okay.
Nearly all of my meetings are now Zoomed, and I find it really difficult to read people. Maybe it's the quality of their cameras, I don't know. But when I'm in the room with people, you talk about being disengaged. I can't tell where they got up and went to the bathroom or where they stomped out mad. You know? And the facial expressions are more difficult to read. You can't tell where they're leaning back from the table or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't really hear the disgusted sighs and all the stuff that an in-person meeting gives you, that other 80% of communication that I don't get
Right.
in digital world. Does anybody have any I just got through taking another entire seminar on that subject, and it was about as helpful as blowing your nose. But anyway, I would welcome any good clues about diagnosing problems with strife while I'm on a Zoom call.
What's the tone of everybody's voices that are participating when they're engaging in the discussion?
With the particular team I'm thinking of at the moment right now, they're just trying to be deferential most of the time.
Okay.
So I'm usually spending a lot of time poking them, and then waiting through that 10 seconds of dead silence while somebody gets up the courage to address the great man. If that makes sense.
It does. Ernie, you look like you have some answer, some wisdom. No. No, I think it goes back to that foundation of trust and making sure that that's present. And I know the other battle that you're working or contending with is the cultural differences too.
Yeah.
I think that place of vulnerability is always a good one to lead with, because that will create a base place of trust among the members of the team, and encouraging them to share opinions that may not agree with the group consensus, and then continuing to reiterate that is the truth, that there is a safe harbor in that room, and that it's okay to disagree, because this type of conversation is going to help us move forward towards something that's better. But if we remain silent, we're going to come to a group consensus, agree on something, but not really be motivated to carry it through. And when the middle comes, we're going to falter, because the work will get hard. I don't know if that helps.
I do find it helpful to tell people up front that the middle will come, that there will come a place here where we're tired of looking at each other, and that it all seems like drudgery, so that when it happens, I hit my "I told you so" button, and then we try to regroup from there. But anyway, thank you so much.
I know in our virtual Bible study, I've changed the method of leading the Bible study, in that I intentionally engage by asking them questions directly, or giving them a Bible passage to read, so that they stay engaged in the meeting, because you can drift off with this technology. And I pass that around the windows on the screen.
That's good. So you give them an
That's good.
assignment. Yeah.
think we could do the same in any type of meeting, that you can be prepared to keep everyone engaged. You might make notes of what their hot buttons are and so forth, or the things you've noticed that they're struggling with, and you throw that on the table and to make them jump in and be a part.
That's good, Tony.
Miss Valerie, could I jump in here too? I know
Sure.
this is funny what I'm about to say because my camera is off, but I keep jumping back and forth between a bunch of different things. But one thing also when doing Zoom sessions, I have found that is helpful in creating a more real life, this is totally practical side of it. But when you're speaking, to speak into the camera and also to kind of set your best practices as the leader before you get into your meeting. So everybody has to have your cameras on. We want to be able to see your face, because just like in a real live meeting, like what you were saying, well, I can't see their eye rolls or their huffs and puffs. I mean, if someone's camera's on, you really can. And it kind of does actually create more of that realistic, we're all sitting together, we're all in this together, we are a team kind of a scenario. And I think as you're developing teams and as you're growing as a team in this new kind of season, you're going to have to find what works in that capacity. But kind of you as a leader setting your best practices. This is what I expect when you come. This is what we're going to do. So that way it is like we are all together.
That's good.
That is good. Tony, I liked what you said about asking questions, and I think, and I'm sure that you do this, that those questions probably should be formulated right before you even get started. I think sometimes the difference between a speaker saying, "Are there any questions?" There can be like just dead silence, right, Valarie? But I'm sure you, for example, and others, you know, you've got some questions in your back pocket that you might phrase to the group or express to the group. The good, powerful questions. How does this apply, you know, to you? Or just some of those open-ended questions, I think can tend to foster some responses. But you kind of, you do have to ask them and not just wait for the people. And then usually, like what's happened here, once somebody starts talking, I think that makes other people a little more willing to jump in.
I agree.
Makes it comfortable.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question if you make it quick. No, I'm kidding. we can go over if we have to.
Don't express yourself, please.
Just being transparent. No, I'm kidding.
Someone like to share on breaking down a silo? When you notice you have a silo, what are some good methods to get rid of it and re-engage that part?
Great question. Who has experience with breaking down a silo and re-engaging?
Just me? I've got the silo. I need to weigh up.
I think we had a silo once, but then they stepped out of that position, so it just re-engaged on its own.
Yeah, could I question? Do you move that person?
Could I address that? Would it be okay?
Sure, go ahead, Cello.
I think if you identify your silo or what area it is that you have that silo that's kind of in place, whether it's intentional or unintentional, I think the best way to begin to make that transition is to see, as you're putting a team together or you have a team, is to see if they have the same perspective that you have of it being identified as a silo. And as you begin to get those different perspectives, they'll literally be able to give you options to work your way out of having that silo. So then you can divvy up responsibility. Now you're communicating to overcome what you're literally trying to eliminate, which is that silo. So you have to create that communication with the team, and I think a lot of that has to do with allowing them, going back to what Val shared before, was having that trust to be able to address what the issue is as far as what's causing the silo. Why is it maintaining? Why is there the lack of communication? As you be able to communicate that, you literally begin to dismantle that silo, and everyone begins to have their own experiences, their thoughts, their perspective in how to dismantle it and begin to spread it out throughout the team.
Thank you.
That was good. Any other input on silos?
I guess
Sometimes if we acknowledge someone's passion about the ministry that they're leading, but then also encouraging them to step out of that and look at the other ministries and engage with those others, and saying, you know, you're so passionate about youth ministry, and you know, so how can we encourage that passion in, you know, the children's ministry or this other ministry, and encouraging them to kind of almost share that passion, and in encouraging someone else to become passionate about the ministry they're leading as well. I think sometimes it almost gives them a job of encouraging somebody else, so then they have this almost a transfer of passion, and they realize, oh wait, this children's ministry is really doing well too, and let's work together, and how can we be part of each other instead of just focused here.
Good, Kay.
That's good.
Because it comes back to communication,
Sounds like it.
effective communication.
Yes. Well, so thank you all. I think we've done a good job through this workshop. We've grown together, which means that we can build together, and we are getting wiser because we have each other. Let's keep going.